What if you want to put a picture inside of a table cell instead of text? Well, remember that each cell in a table is sort of like a mini text frame, so the only way to get a graphic in there is to paste it as an anchored object. I'll zoom down on the bottom part of this page, and I'm going to go grab a graphic. Choose the File menu, choose Place, and then go grab one of these pictures. I'll drag out a small frame over here to the side of the table. In general, when you are placing pictures inside of cells, you want to make sure they're small. That is, about the size of the cell itself. If you have a really big picture, then remember to scale it down before you try and put it into the cell. Let's say I want to put it into this cell here. I'll go ahead and double-click on this and delete the text out of it. I'll go grab the selection tool, select my graphic, and I'm going to make it an inline object by dragging this little anchored box in the upper right corner, that little red box here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key to make it an inline box. If I don't hold down the Shift key, then it becomes an anchored object instead of an inline object. I talked about the difference between the two in an earlier chapter. But here you can see that as soon as I drag it in, it becomes an inline object and it places the whole graphic inside that cell. You'll notice that there's extra space around the graphic. That's kind of annoying, and that's because this cell has a cell inset value. So to get rid of that, I'm going to double-click inside the cell itself. That switches to the Type tool and allows me to get to the Cell Options dialog box. Table, Cell Options, Text. We can see that the cell insets for this cell are all set to 4. We want this to be 0, so I'll simply type 0 into the first field, and then I'll click on this little link button to make them all match. The other thing I'm going to do is turn on Clip Contents to Cell. That means when the cell is smaller than the graphic, it will clip it down, much like an image gets clipped or cropped inside of a graphic frame. The last thing I'm going to do is get rid of this extra space on the right side. I could do this by dragging this column edge over, or, I'll press Undo here, I could make this graphic frame larger by holding down Command-Shift or Control-Shift on Windows and dragging until it's large. Notice that I made it larger than the cell, and yet it's clipping. That's because we turned on that Clip Content to Cell checkbox. But this cell and its whole row is much too large now. Let's go ahead and make it smaller. By selecting the row, I double-clicked here to switch back to the Type tool. I'll click out on the left to select the whole row, and I'm going to change the height to exactly a smaller amount. Let's say 60 points. But this cell and the whole row that it's on is just too big, so I'm going to make that smaller by cropping this slightly differently. I simply change the height of the graphic frame, and that changes the height of the row. Of course, to move the graphic inside here, I can double-click on it. That grabs the image, and then I can click and drag until it looks the way I want. Let go, and that looks pretty good. Our table is done at last. But wait, someone just emailed us with some new updated information. What are we going to do? Well, in the next movie, we're going to look at how to take data from Excel files and even get that data into our finished table without having to start over from scratch.